Hi everyone, I'm Tim Casemage, co-founder from InfraView Recruitment, and welcome to this edition of InfraViewing, our dedicated platform for sharing thoughts and insights within the cloud and IT infrastructure sector. So today, I'm joined by Dan Fearnley at 6 Degrees, who are a leading managed service provider within the cloud and IT infrastructure arena, Rui Vieira from CDW, who provide consulting, cloud and integrated technology solutions, and Richard Evans of Cinos, a leading audiovisual and unified communications network security specialist. Welcome to everyone. Today, we're all going to discuss the future of remote versus physical recruitment and how we hire as a business in our sector, return from the pandemic. So what we've learned, what will we do differently, and what does it mean to us right now? So, guys, first of all, really appreciate your time, taking the opportunity to, just spend a little bit of time and be part of our new launch. So I'd like to start by asking you all, are video interviews just as good as, or in some ways better than physical interviews? So I'd like to sort of throw that out to the floor now, guys.
I'm happy to kick off and never stop me talking. So yeah, keep just stepping as you go through. I looked through and had to think about this and think I'm not sure they're as good, but I think they're good enough. I think certainly the theme that probably come through for me is that in the early stages of interviews, I think they're definitely as good. I think maybe in the final stages and depending on the seniority outside of this COVID world, I might prioritize meeting someone face to face. But I think, as far as the early stages are concerned, I think they're better. I think maybe for the later stages, maybe not quite as good, is the way I'd probably sum it up in a kind of nutshell from my point of view.
Perfect, cool. And Rui?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think personally for me, face-to-face interviews by far outweigh a video call or a telephone call for obvious reasons. But considering what the country or the world technically has been through over the last 18 months or so, I think video interviews have been fantastic and has offered an opportunity to actually not stop recruiting, where traditionally it's a face-to-face in the office job. So I think there are pros to it, but equally, like Dan has said, I think the latter stages of them, they're really important to at least see the individuals face-to-face. And the only other thing I would say is, because it is, through video recording, it's making sure that the audio is okay on the other end for the interviewer as well, right? It's people's homes, it's microphones, it's some people talking to a webcam. It's not necessarily the clearest to actually interview, so it can be a little bit tricky, I would say.
Absolutely. And Richard?
I think it depends on the culture of the place, if I'm entirely honest. So we're a collaboration business, so in a kind of weird way, it can also kind of double up as a bit of an aptitude test of seeing how comfortable they are with video, how comfortable they are with collaboration technologies and all that kind of stuff. Similarly, we are a work from home organization. So a lot of what they do in their day-to-day work is going to be over video. So if anything, you're kind of seeing people in their natural habitat. So it's, as the guy said, it's never going to replace face-to-face, but it actually gives us another tool in our armory now to just make interviewing more fitting in what they're going to do, especially at Cinos. But the other thing I think it does bring is it fits nicely with personal circumstances of the candidate as well. So you know how it is. Sometimes it's difficult to get time away from work to go for a face-to-face interview. It's much, speaking personally as well, when I've interviewed in the past, it's much easier to just jump on a video, especially if you can, candidates probably more inclined as well to do those slightly out of hours, like a 6 p.m. video call, than if you said to them, come wander in at 6 p.m. So I think it marries nicely with the culture of the business who's recruiting, but also personal circumstances of the candidate as well. My wife is a perfect example of this, who is in the recruiting process at the moment and is doing a load of video interviews, and it works absolutely perfect for someone that has kids to look after at the same time as well. You don't kind of have to down tools and everything and try and find something to watch them while you go out and actually do a face-to-face.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, from a sort of recruitment agency perspective, certainly we found some huge benefits from, saving time And like you said, Richard, you know, it's easier for some people that, yeah, are, you know, looking after kids, or they're a parent, or, you know, they just haven't got time to take that commute or that travel. I think that first stage is great from video, and I think that will stay, because it just gives both the hiring manager and the candidate to engage just a little bit more about personality and character, and just sort of home in on some of the tech questions potentially, and not get through to a second, third stage face to face, and then realize that, yeah, they're just not the right fit from both sides. So yeah, I think it served a really good purpose throughout the sort of pandemic. Certainly at the beginning when we were in super lockdown, and yeah, no one could either go anywhere or was just really worried about going anywhere. So yeah, seen some real benefits. Yeah, good insights there, guys. Next question on that topic. I mean, have any of you hired during lockdown or the entire pandemic without actually meeting, you know, your new recruit, as in first, second, and third stage, or the whole process?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll take this one. Yeah, I've done that. It's been a very busy 18 months for CDW. I mean, there's been some really tough times for a lot of people out there. A lot of businesses, personal circumstances impacted to quite a few people. CDW has gone from strength to strength in many areas, and I've been blessed. And my team have also been blessed in order to be able to recruit, and I have recruited off the back of just video interviewing. Would I say it was straightforward? Yes. Traumatic to an extent, because you're on video calls pretty much all day, every day, and that kind of takes its toll after a while.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely. Interviewed quite a few, have recruited quite a few, waited on a couple to join at the same time as well. So I've not actually met them face to face, but they've all worked out so far. Fantastic. And I hope that the next member to join, if he ever watches this, I hope he doesn't let the side down either. It's it's been a good journey, that's for sure.
So it sounds like you've adapted, and yeah, you've seen some success from being in the global pandemic and doing interviews via video. I appreciate time will tell, because then you can probably understand, depending how long they stay, or you know, how they actually turn out face to face. Well, you'll be able to put this sort of, you know, analysis around it. But so far, so good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Richard?
So far, so good.
Yeah, so similar. We've actually been through that, and I think he'd been here about a month before I'd even met him face to face. So not only have we been through the recruiting process, he actually worked for us for about a month before I actually met him face to face. But like I said, it was absolutely fine. Kind of they went through the process. You know, apart from kind of like the personal element of meeting someone face to face, the actual process was pretty smooth and pretty easy. If anything, say to me, the biggest not challenge of it really, just the biggest consideration for it really was the person, the candidate themselves. Again, the person themselves, is that it's a daunting prospect starting a new business anyway, or, you know, starting a new job anyway. Add into the mix of that, you don't actually see anyone, and you don't actually press the flesh, you know, with anyone. It just, I think, if anything, it made it more difficult for the candidate rather than the hiring body, if you see what I mean. For the hiring body, it actually made it easier. The candidate, then it's just that whole kind of settling in period just becomes a bit more formulaic, of scheduling video calls with people rather than just, you know, chatting in corridors and stuff like that, as it would be in a normal process.
So did you feel that it took the candidate a little bit longer to potentially feel part of, because they've haven't met anyone in person, so they've kind of gone through first, second stage, and the onboarding process is still via video, I suppose?
Absolutely, yeah. So, and the only way really to combat that is how everyone's kind of combated. You know, this is a wider organisational thing throughout the whole of the pandemic and remote working and all that. And we're relatively experienced at that now, because we were a work from home business before the pandemic anyway. So in terms of kind of the operational side of it, it didn't affect us too badly. And similarly for new starters, we were used to that culture shock of someone coming from a place where, you know, they might come from a big open plan office where they can go and talk to people and just wander over to a desk, to suddenly you're working from home, and it's more of a kind of an online workplace. But we have regular meetings, we have regular video get-togethers and all this kind of stuff. That the last year has accelerated for the rest of the industry. We were kind of already on that trajectory anyway. So I suppose what I'm getting at is, it's a culture shock for the candidate, but no more so than it was for us anyway. I suppose it just shone a light on it a bit more, really, because there was no alternative. In, you know, previous circumstances, we work from home, we do everything over video, but if they wanted to go into an office, they could do. And we had candidates in the past who said that, you know, said, yeah, fine, work from home is very convenient, but I still want to go in and talk to people. And saying, yeah, okay, that's great. You know, we have offices that have people in them, so you can still do that. Whereas obviously here it forced your hand a bit and said, well, there's no alternative. Here's a new job. Here's a new bunch of people, and you got to learn. You got to get to know them all with video only.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that was the challenge for him.
Cool, brilliant. And Dan, any views on this?
Bit of a unique one from my point of view, because I think I think we've recruited 10 people at least. That's where, Tim, you're counting up on one hand how many were. Yeah, hang on, I only had 6.
Hold on,
so,
right.
Yeah, so I think easily, 10 people during that period of time. But at the same time, I left a job the week before. I was working in Cardiff. I left the job the week before lockdown. June, I handed my notice in, and I started a new business with 6 Degrees in September. So I have not only recruited people, I've been through the recruitment process and changed jobs. And I have to say, for the people we've recruited, everyone is in place and exceptional. You know, there's no concerns. I don't think there's anything. Whilst I said earlier on, I'd still want to do a second interview face to face. If I challenge myself, everybody who's been through it has come through, and there's not a single doubt that you look at and you go, do you know what, we would have picked this up if you'd have seen you face to face. The biggest surprise when you meet people is, I expected you to be bigger or smaller than you were, based upon the angle that your camera has been at for the last few months. So yeah, as a candidate, having gone through it, it's amazing actually. The social bonds, I reckon it's up there in the 90s. I think it's really hard to put my finger on what the difference is now. I have met some people, and there are loads of people I haven't met, but I've been in the office a few times and met people. It's a tiny percentage amount of difference that you kind of, I felt like I've got by seeing them face to face. And each of the candidates, you almost forget now when you meet them. You almost, you don't shake hands anymore, it seems. So that bit's a bit odd. But at the same time, I kind of question, have we met before? Have we actually met face to face? And both parties tend to be like, no, I don't think we have. So it goes to show that it's made a difference, because I think it'd be wrong to say there isn't a difference, because I think there is. But to actually put your finger on what it is, I can't. It's really difficult. They're really successful.
Do you know what? It's really refreshing to hear that. I mean, it sounds like it's been a really positive shake-up that, you know, we, in the back of our minds, still want to, when we can, do a face-to-face. But whether that be through the interview process or after, we're kind of not too worried now, you know, because we've adapted to the change, and, you know, we believe that we can have the right interview process, have the right questions and structure to be able to identify if him or her are right, which is great. I think sort of my view on that, where you mentioned that, you know, a lot of the candidates that you've hired, you know, have stayed, and there was nothing there you would have done different. I think from a recruitment perspective, you know, certainly within the channel with the MSP solution provider space, you know, it's really incestuous. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone gets counter offered. No one likes to lose a billable consultant or someone who works in professional services. And from my view, you know, if they go through that whole process and then they commit to accepting without physically going into the office or meeting their hiring manager in person, I believe we're 99.9% there, personally, because you're getting someone to commit to buy something without touching it. Yeah. So, you know, I've seen far less counter-offer acceptances, you know, since doing a lot of hiring throughout the sort of pandemic, which is great. I've also had quite a few people not wanting to engage because they have had that worry about not being able to meet someone or see the office. So there is definitely pros and cons. But I think once the person is ready to commit, they're fully committed, which I think is really refreshing, because you know, we're not wasting our time, you know, putting that induction in place. Also, I think from InfraView's perspective as well, the onboarding process, when we've had to do that all remote, it's kind of give us a bit of a refreshing kick up the backside to make extra effort. Because like you said, Dan, you know, there's some people that you haven't met, or when we do meet them and we were just sort of blessed with the fact that, well, they're going to come into the office and we're going to meet them at some point. I think when we know we're definitely not going to meet them, we kind of make that extra effort to get them involved. And actually that's really refreshing, because sometimes we forget about that, you know, that they are new, and it doesn't take, you know, it takes sometimes some people longer to feel part of and feel that, you know, they've made the right decisions. That onboarding even more so is really, really critical. And yeah, certainly from our perspectives, I've seen, and speaking to a lot of clients, they're making that extra effort. I know, Rui, the other day you were saying, you know, sort of getting that team building events and doing casino nights and drinks and stuff. I'm hearing more and more you know, some wicked ideas that actually, you know, I think everyone should learn from, and, you know, it gives us a real chance to connect and utilize what's around us. But guys, thanks so much. Yeah, that was some great insights there. And yeah, I think there's a lot there to take on board, really relevant, loads of positives, which is brilliant. I'd like to move on now to discuss what we should expect from candidates post-pandemic. So, you know, sort of first question, should we expect them to meet us in person at first stage interview anymore? Kind of sort of highlighted that a little bit. You know, has any additional views on that at all? Kind of sort of covered it a little bit.
No, I think personally for me, from being a hiring manager, and also as all of us on this call would have been going for interviews ourselves, right? I think not having to go in person, especially if you're traveling into London and people don't always live in London, having to travel in and book trains and then expense that or probably have to pay for it themselves. And you turn up and you get the feeling that it's not for you as a candidate as well, right? Candidates are there to interview yourself. And if they're not interviewing you, then there's something wrong. So I don't think we need to go back into that old school type of, and it's weird to call it old school, it's only 18 months ago, but to go back to that kind of interviewing process where you are expecting to see people in the office first time round for a first round interview. Me personally, I will probably not be doing any of that. If anything, I would like to continue with the quick, you know, video interviews. A, they're quicker. B, it's like Richard said, it's in their own habitat, right? They're at home more often than not. You know, they're already comfortable, and there's nothing worse than going into an interview already nervous. Even from a recruiting point of view, you know, as the hiring managers, you're nervous too. You know, you want to make sure that, you know, you're selling your role professionally and it's 100% accurate, and you want that enthusiasm to kind of seep through you, and you also want the candidate to completely buy into you, right? People buy from people traditionally, and it'll always be that way. You know, you want them to come work for you like they want to work for you either as well. So I don't think asking people to come back into London and see me face to face on the first round interviews, I'll be doing again personally. If anything, it would just be the videos. But I could be swayed with what Dan was saying, maybe the latter interviews, but depending on the role. And even then, I very much doubt. If anything, what I've decided to do is to continue with the videos, and it's actually been the candidates. So a specific chap hasn't joined us yet, and he's already emailed me to say, I can't wait to see you on the 21st of June. And I said to him, well, hang on, I'm not even going to be back in the office on the 21st of June. You know, so I'll tell you what, why don't you just come in, let's just onboard you. Let me get you feeling the love and feeling wanted and needed, because at the end of the day, that's exactly what we need you for. And let's catch up maybe in a few months down the line. So for me, it will definitely be remaining as it is. I think it's just a quicker, easier, stress-free, or as stress-free as possible, instead of having to commute in on a very packed, hot train to come and see an interviewer and then be a little bit uncomfortable at the end. So yeah, I'd continue as it is personally.
The only thing I was going to add into that, from what's been said before, from my point of view, being really, really selfish about it, it's perfect for the candidate not having to travel. But in the past, you know, people have travelled. You've put an hour. I almost never put a half an hour first interview in when someone had travelled. It felt really rude. I'm now they're all there half an hour kind of calls because they're quicker, and quite often, you know, the first 10 minutes, you can get a good feel, you know, whether it's brilliant, you're unsure, you need to see more, or not good. And when it's not good, I've been sat in interviews in the face-to-face where on my mind I'm thinking, I need to cut this short, but we're 10 minutes in, this person's travelled, it's a bad reflection on the business I'm working for at the time, therefore I'm going to carry on just to make sure this person doesn't feel terrible. And that's a waste of everyone's time. So it definitely, from my point of view, having that half an hour in the diary, you're pretty clear, and you can get through so many more first interviews, and it's probably better from a candidate's perspective, you get to see more people.
Brilliant. Perfect. And Richard, I think you summed up earlier that your preference is, but have you got any additional points on that? Exactly
what the guy said, really. So
yeah,
early stage, video is definitely more convenient for absolutely everyone. And as Rui mentioned there, you know, kind of there's an onus as well on you as a hirer. It's a bit of a performance, really, isn't it? You have to sell the place to them, and having to wheel that out for 5 candidates at the first hurdle for a face-to-face can be a bit grueling, especially if you stack them all up back to back. Whereas if you just use video as your first port of call, just to check what these people like, so, you know, whether I want to invite them in, then you can filter it down and kind of save those performances for when you do actually invite them in for a latter stage interview, and then you can meet them face to face and you can just chat normally and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just, like I said before, to me, it's just an additional tool to the armory now, is that I now have the choice. And I think the key word you said at the top of it was expect, or is it an expectation for it? And I don't think it is. I just think it's an option you've got now, is you can do the whole hiring process remotely if you have to. Again, I used to work for an American organization, and I went through the whole hiring process remotely, because obviously they're in America, which was seven interviews over video, including presentations and all this kind of stuff. And I think I'd been there a year before I actually met my hiring manager face to face. You know, again, this is just for me. Obviously, it's not the same for everyone else, but for me, it wasn't a problem. It's fine. And you know, as Dan said, you know, I'd spoken with all the guys so often on video that when I actually did meet them, it didn't feel weird. It didn't feel like this is the first time I'm meeting them. It's just meeting an old buddy or something like that. You know, just it almost didn't compute that I'd never actually met them in person before. But yeah, for me, that's it. It's just we got the option now.
Great, and look, and finishing on these points, absolutely, we've got the option and the flexibility, and if it makes sense to do a face-to-face, great. You know, we can quite easily do that now. But I think, yeah, safe to say, in summary, you know, first stage, let's get a video set up. You know, it's easier, quicker, saves time. You know, and certainly the crazy world we live in with people up and down the country, all over the UK and globally now, it just gives us access to, move things on quickly. And it gives both candidate and client the opportunity to work out if it is then worth pursuing, whether that be a more in-depth video or a face-to-face. Guys, brilliant. Some really cool points. I think we're all in agreement, which is brilliant. Let me finish by asking you all how you think recruiters can help build these new sort of virtual relationships.
With help relationships with whom?
Yeah, so whether that be with the candidate or with the agent. So, you know, do you think the recruiters can help build these relationships, you know, or the virtual relationships? And what do you see happening when, you know, you deal with a sort of specialist recruiter? Does that make sense? Yeah,
makes sense. Dan, do you want to go? I think you were about to say something.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably as much about just setting an expectation of whatever the culture of the organisation is, really. I don't know. I'm trying to think if it changes massively in an online world or in a face-to-face world. The only thing that makes a little bit of a difference, and this is just me being a bit old school, is, you know, making sure the candidate is aware it is still an interview, and be aware of what's going on in the background. And absolutely, I think so preparing them, life gets in the way at home. Everyone knows me from a dog barking, kids running in. That's actually quite nice. It's quite nice to see part of what makes them them. But on the same time, you know, you sometimes sit there and go, should you really have that background? What's going on behind you? It looks a bit chaotic. That bit looks a bit chaotic. Or, you know, I didn't expect you to be in a suit, but I also didn't expect you to be in pajamas type thing. So it's probably, you know, I think people's expectations, if they are coming in the office, is in an IT world, depending on the culture, you know, smart casual, whatever you're going to be, it's probably just making sure that the candidates are still aware that they are still putting their best foot forward. They are still presenting themselves in the best light.
Absolutely.
Regardless of the fact that you might be in your home setting in general. But other than that, I think it's not much difference to being, you know, a physical world to a virtual world, really, from the interviewing, from the help we need. Well, for me anyway.
Perfect. And Richard?
100% agree with that. Don't think I could summarize that any better myself. The dynamic doesn't change really, does it? It's just the delivery. So it's how you're actually going to conduct the interview. So it's really just preparing them for that, I suppose, shift and expectation and etiquette around how they're going to, you know, actually be interviewed this time around. And to me, it's more kind of on the personal side of the candidate, of what suits them. And because, you know, it's two ways, and it's what suits the hiring organization, but also what suits them best as well. And they don't kind of get bludgeoned down a corridor into an interview, or an interview style, or an approach that they're not comfortable with, or, you know, even a time they're not comfortable with. Just managing that whole process. So we know we're meeting a happy candidate who's at a time that is convenient to them, you know, going for a job that they are enthusiastic about, and they want to put themselves in the best possible light, because then we can worry about our side of putting the business in the best possible light back to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Rui?
Yeah, fully agree. I think it's still important that that people still realise it is an interview, and they should be presenting themselves in the best light as possible, and best foot forward and everything like that. I mean, I have had people on both sides of the spectrum, not so far as have pajamas, Dan, but they have been there and a little bit more relaxed than perhaps I would have expected them to be. But equally, you should still put on the shirt. There's nothing wrong with that. Just be presentable, be smart. You are going for a position. You are going to work for an industry and for an organization that you've done your research on and you want to be a part of. We have very much a culturally relaxed environment, but at the same time, you meet clients. So there is that expectation to still be somewhat professional and true to yourself. In terms of background activities and noise, I mean, I have a dog. He comes in and says hello sometimes. And it is nice to see that. I personally don't mind it, far from it. If anything, I don't know about you guys, but my interview tactics are it's almost kind of formal, informal. It's not kind of the Jedi mind trick, right? But it's almost a, come in, relax. Yes, you can get some questions wrong, but it's not about getting them wrong. It's about you, relaxing, being able to be true to yourself, respond as best as you possibly can. And for me as a hiring manager, is to get that feeling that, they will add value. It's not just the social aspect, but it's also the technical point of view. So if they're distracted and they've got some weird stuff in the background, well, we're all weird in our own certain way, or we're all different, should I say, in our own different ways. And I think that's quite refreshing to kind of see. And it's perhaps they wouldn't be so open or an extrovert if they were coming to see you in an office in London, drinking their little glass of water. So I think it's nice to see personally, but it's still an interview. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with all those comments, actually. I think, we're all in agreement that, it is still an interview. As much as we create this sort of relaxed environment, certainly from InfraView's perspective, when we're preparing candidates, at the beginning, when it became apparent that, all we can do is video interviewing, we had to really sort of switch that on and make sure that they are still going into an interview to impress. Not necessarily put a suit on, but, make sure there is minimal noise in the background. Make sure they have done everything in their power to give themselves the best opportunity to impress. Because as far as we're concerned, it's, they're representing us, they're representing themselves, and if they're serious about going for this opportunity and ideally working for that new business, in my eyes, they should be giving it their absolute all. And, they should be turning up to that interview, albeit whether it be in their study, bedroom, front room, whatever, looking smart, be prepared, and treat that as a first stage full-on interview. That was really important for us as a business, when, we were hit with this pandemic, that, every time we prepared a candidate, I think the horror stories came out with, spillage, noise, kids, dogs, whatever. But, that's all fine because we can get around that. What we can't get around is someone just sitting there all a bit slapdash, not interested, not engaged, hasn't prepared for the interview. Because as far as, I think, things will crop up. We're human. We're in a situation, like everyone said, if a dog starts barking or the kid needs attention, that's absolutely fine. But what I don't accept is if someone isn't prepared on the role, the business, the interviewer, they should still be coming to that video fully up for it and, giving it their best shot to impress because, even if, we fall all back to face, it's the impressions that count the most, right? And they need to be coming into that board meeting and own it. So, yeah, guys, listen, we are nearly sort of coming to the end. I think some really good insights there. And, I think what's come out of what we've discussed so far is, we've all adapted to change and we've made the best out of a situation. What looked a little bit dull, if I'm honest, at the beginning, and everyone was a little bit worried and nervous and how would we continue to grow and scale up? But, we very quickly shaped things. We adapted, we worked together, we utilized the technology and everything that's around us. And I think we've adapted really well. And it seems like we've all made some good, solid hires, over the last sort of 12 months, which is brilliant. You're probably pleased to know it is coming. It is the end. I just want to say, look, guys, thanks so much. Some great insights there. I'm sure all of you watching, are as interested as we are on the way our industry is changing, and we're all, looking to return to normal. Is this the new normal? But once again, thanks, Richard, Rui, and Dan for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you all again for another episode of InfraViewing. Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys. Thank you.